And we're
Yeah,
live.
for all the good it's doing, I'm recording.
I'm also recording on top of broadcasting and all that stuff. Um, tell your friends you're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
We have another very special episode. We have the 2023 movie Godzilla Minus One. Nathan, Nathan, do you have a history with Godzilla Minus One, or I guess Godzilla in general? I don't know.
I watched this for the first time last Sunday
Okay.
because you told me to watch it for the podcast, and I'd heard about it, but for some reason I never really I didn't know anything about it. So I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'll watch that. I mean, I've heard it's like, oh, it's the best one in like 50 years or whatever. So I
Yeah.
had that,
I mean,
but
I really like Shin Godzilla, but that's a completely different movie. That's like a movie without a single protagonist. It's like a like
yeah,
a
it's like a government versus
yes,
Godzilla.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, I think I have seen that one.
yeah.
Isn't that the one where it's like we have to stop it because America said they just nuke our country?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, they were under the gun somehow.
um, but yeah, I heard good things about this, and then I know it won the Oscars for special effects. I'm like, huh. And I watched this movie and like they're fine. They don't seem Oscar worthy, but um,
Did you ever watch the Godzilla minus one minus color,
no,
where it's just the black and white Godzilla minus one,
huh? Does
but
it?
it's not dubbed. It's just subtitled.
Oh, okay.
So
Does
you
it?
really kind of get that vibe of watching an old fashioned Godzilla movie.
Oh, okay. So there might be more to like their special effects where it kind of works on a lot of different levels if you like look at it a certain way.
Yeah, because it seemed like because I watched that too, and it seemed like they kind of did that smear effect on the edge of the lens,
Okay, yeah.
so everything didn't look quite so sharp. And I don't know if that was just an effect of taking the color out of it, or if they did it on purpose. I don't understand things at that depth, but
But also, I looked at the other nominees for that year, and it was Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, which I haven't watched, but it was probably fine. Galaxy Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which was totally fine. Probably technically better special effects than this. There was the Napoleon, which you could speak on that. What do you think of the special effects in Napoleon?
it looked amazing. It looked
Okay.
like an old school masterpiece or historical, not masterpiece. Looked like an old school genre, historical drama.
Okay. So maybe that should have won, but like so I could see, and also I don't know like the limitations they have because I know every Japanese live action movie comes with extreme limitations. So sometimes they look silly in a way where it's like it looks like a B movie, but like you have no idea how hard people put the effort into it, even though it doesn't look necessarily that great.
Well, I think for Godzilla's minus one, like as a complete package, it does beat those movies because it has such a cool story and
Yeah,
it has a pretty moving soundtrack and sound design
yeah.
too. So that makes the special effects. It's like, yeah, sometimes it's like, well, that's not real, but it's like it's also
It's
cool.
but it's also going for a style, which is probably what
Yes.
gives it the win.
Yeah.
Because like I think I would say it's comparable to is like Greyhound. Like I'd say that in this movie basically have comparable special effects.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that.
Maybe Greyhound has better water physics or something, but they don't have to animate a monster. So, um, um, oh yeah, I guess I should bring this up because I was like on Oscar stuff. Because I was we got done with Nope, and I was thinking like, man, Nope's such a great movie. How many Oscars did it not get nominated for? It's like zero. It's like, man, fuck the Oscars. Everything, everywhere, all at once won for Best Picture, which is a fine movie, but it's nothing compared to Nope. So
Yeah. I think a lot of the Oscar 2020 stuff was less like, how does this make you feel during the pandemic? And I think everything, everywhere, all at once is like, yeah, that's kind of the schizophrenia that everyone or a lot of people seem to feel.
yeah.
Whereas Nope was more like, let's sit around and think about like the darkness that will slowly consume. It could be.
um. So yeah, this came out December 1st, 2023 in America. I have no idea when it came out in Japan, probably like 6 months earlier for all I know. So
Yeah.
a lot of Japanese live action movies don't make it to America in the theaters. So this is kind of unusual. So um, actually, I don't know the budget on it. I assume it was low, but I actually don't
$20
know.
million.
Okay, so yeah, they did a lot with what they had.
Yeah.
So um, I think I've seen it behind the scenes on like a lot of the boat stuff, where a lot of it's green screen, and a lot of like you see like the boats moving and stuff, and a lot of that's just kind of almost like Star Trek special effects, where the people just act like the boat's waving rather than them having the budget to put it on like a gimbal to move it. um, director is oh man, I guess I should look these people up because like I don't know if I think there's actually stuff from the cinematographer that I recognize. But director is Takashi Yamazaki. He did some movie called Fighter Pilot. Yeah, I don't really know. I don't really know any of his stuff.
I know A Taxing Woman's Return, 1988. That's about the Japanese tax service and routing out corruption
Okay.
in their government. And because it had a female lead, it was very unusual for a Japanese movie. And it's actually kind of cool. It's a very 80s movie,
Okay.
very Japanese movie where you kind of gotta like you're gonna have to do some sideline research to like why do their IRS agents seem more like FBI agents? And it's like, and why when you ask people to, pay their taxes, that they're like, oh, if you dishonor me, I'll have you killed. It's like, that doesn't seem like a government relationship. Yeah, it's kind of, I think it was the world that kind of existed in Japan at one time. I don't know if it's that way anymore.
Yeah.
But I do remember he worked on that film. He did not direct it or write it, but he worked on that one.
This guy did direct the live action version of Space Battleship Yamato.
Okay, that's a cool one. I think some of those actors are in the.
Okay, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I know that's one of your favorite.
Japanese franchises.
Yeah.
And the live action one and the cartoons are great. I mean the original ones. I know there's newer ones. I just haven't.
Oh, they're really okay. I haven't seen those. Actually, I haven't seen any of them. I just know the idea, and I know it's a fun idea and like I guess clever kind of design and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just taking a World War II battleship, and it's like we put a super weapon in it. Because the actual Yamato, never got its due. Like,
yeah,
it's supposed to like we're gonna slug it out because it's the one thing we have that's superior to the U.S. Navy is this massive battleship that fires like a van-sized shell. It's like the American battleships are tiny compared to this, and it's like, yeah, but not our aircraft carrier. Is what sunk it. It just dropped a bomb on it. It's sunk. It's like, well, okay, bye. They had another one too. I forget. It wasn't the Yamato. I forget what it was called, but that one also got sunk by just like a bombing run from an aircraft carrier.
And I've seen the cover of this movie he did called Returner. Can't remember if I've seen it or not, but I definitely remember the cover. It looks very, post The Matrix. So.
Okay.
Let's see now. Let's look at the cinematographer, which I think he's just worked with this guy a lot because I think there's a lot of same. Kozu Shibasaki. Yeah, he just works with the director a lot, so he worked on the same movies.
Yeah. Yep, I really can't. With some of these foreign, and Japan, of course, has its own movie universe. So
yeah. Hey, we did the Takayashi Miike and like his whole weird thing where he makes like 4 movies a year. So it's Japanese live action filmmaking is like a whole different beast, and animation is a whole different beast. It's like they're all like there's like subsections of like there's straight to video movies. There's like theatrical releases. There's an anime's all weird too because what do they call it? Oh, what's it called? It's called like OTA or something like that. Original something anime, where it's like it's not an anime that comes out weekly. It comes out once a month. Like back in the VHS day, there was like here's this series you get one episode a month, and you buy it on VHS, and throughout the year you finally get the whole season.
Wild. Can you imagine the VHS collections in Japanese homes now? Like walls and walls of the 30-minute VHS tape.
um, but yeah, I mean that's what you got. Yeah, there's some, and usually like that stuff, it'd either be like garbage or it'd be like really impressive, and you'd want more. But just like the structure of how the show was, how it's built, it just meant like it's almost like a British show. It's like, did you like that? Well, we're done with it, so sorry. um, Written by the director Takahashi Yamazaki, and then we got the cast here, who I don't know any of them. So, and like, I've like lately these like it's supposed to be on Internet Movie Database. The first three names are kind of supposed to be like the first like top 3 billing people of the movie, but it seems to be Internet Movie Database is letting us down all the time. But since I don't know these people, here you go. We got uh, Minami Hamabe, Ryosuke Kamiki, and Sakura Ando. So, so I don't know who those people are, but whatever. um, yeah, I guess that's all our background we can say on it, I guess.
Yeah, we can talk more about like big narratives. We're not going to understand. I mean, because the stuff that's going on here is like, oh, it's relatable to America.
Yeah, the story. Yeah, the story. Like I was kind of like disappointed in it at first, and then like it really comes together at the end. So, and it's not even like, and it's not even like that doing anything that special. It's just it knows when to like pull its punches and when to hit you and stuff like that. And the Godzilla stuff is like almost like in the background, like it kind of how it should be. I mean, usually Godzilla movies are about like lamenting like what man has done to nature, and nature has come back to it. And here it's like more of like this personal story of redemption, like against the chaos of war and what it did to like Japan in general, like its identity and all that stuff. And it's like kind of like you see like the culture of Japan like changes at the end of this movie, essentially. And this is all a prelude to the original Godzilla, like which that was like 1950, right? Like when that originally came out.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what the kind of the weird name is like, because this in our nomenclature that would be like Godzilla, like D-Day 1. That's what the name means.
Yeah.
Or it could be some extra dimensional meaning. It's like, oh, it's Godzilla minus Godzilla, because like you said, he's just a background character, and the foreground is like the characters and their lives and how they develop. And but no, it's actually, it would be like it would be like G-Day +1 or something. we would say, or other dark meanings that are specifically related to Japan. Like Ground Zero, Day +1. It's like, oh yeah, we actually use those terms in Japan because there's nuclear weapons on them.
Well, yeah, it's weird because there's a bunch of like, I think there's one nuke that goes off, and then basically every time Godzilla shoots its heat ray, it's like a nuke going off. But like there's never any mentions about the nukes that went off in Japan in this movie.
No, there's implications though later as to what happened to Godzilla.
Yeah.
And then the bizarre like allied reaction to Godzilla's attack.
Yeah.
I'm trying to imagine MacArthur there with his corncob pipe, like, this is a local issue. We're not. There's some weird creature destroying their city. This isn't our problem. We've got to fight the communists.
But yeah, I always thought like in the Godzilla fiction that like the bombs dropped on Japan created Godzilla. Where here it's like it's implicating that it already exists or something.
Yeah, something was going on. It's because it kind of follows like the only good. Well, there's a couple good modern Godzilla movies, but like it uses the same premise. It's like the super nukes we set off on the Bikini Atoll.
Yeah,
like mutated Godzilla.
Yes, yeah, that's a direct reference in here. So
yeah, because the only American thing that gets destroyed in this is like a submarine that was like monitoring the attacks or something. And it's like, oh yeah, this thing's bigger now, and like, well, let the Japanese handle it. They're a people. We gotta stop the commies or whatever was going on back then. But it's also a convenient way to like write that whole subplot out. Like, well, wouldn't America just show up with the giant navy they used to conquer the Pacific and blow this thing to hell? It's like, well, we eliminate that problem now by saying it's like it's your problem, Japan. This monster, you created it, right? Okay.
So we open on a World War II bomber flying to an island to land, and the runway's just full of holes because it got bombed or whatever. So, you get titles: 1945, Odo Island Airfield, Final Days of World War II. Get another. It's like Odo Island Navy Detachment. A Navy crew goes over the plane. There's no issue with the plane. And then a mechanic and a pilot have like familiarity with each other. Like, hey, I saw you here. And then the mechanic kind of compliments him before he's like gesturing at him being a coward because like, you're a kamikaze. You're supposed to die with this plane. Like, what are you doing here? There's nothing wrong with your plane. So,
well, they look through the plane and they're like, yeah, we can't find anything wrong with it.
Oh, wait, yeah, also compliments the guys like, yeah, like our airfield is not good to land and you've landed it perfectly. It's like, you're a good pilot, but you're supposed to be dead for our country. So.
Yeah, the main mechanic here, well, yeah, by the end of it, the main mechanic that he knows here is, I go by their last names, and this is Tashibana.
Yeah.
He becomes an important character later.
Yeah. Then another mechanic, like Koichi. Yeah, I get their names later on. The pilot's Koichi, I believe.
Yeah, Koichi Shikishima.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of grabbed the names as they came. I don't know if they're first or last, so sorry if that is it.
I just go by their last names.
Okay, well, I know one name, so I don't know both of them, so I don't know which one I'm using.
Koichi is his first name.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna be calling it's Koichi in my notes. I think I have Tanabashi. I think I have Noriko.
Yep.
And then I have the kid, Doc, and the captain. So that's what I called them. So.
Yeah, that's Noda is the smart guy.
Yeah.
Which I just, because he's like Yoda. Remembered their names.
So yeah, like Koichi like goes by like the ocean, and then like another mechanic like kind of has a heart to heart with him about like not blaming him for like not wanting to needlessly die for his country. So
yeah, that was the main guy. Told him it's like you don't need to die anymore. It's because at this point they knew it was over.
Yeah.
It was like the invasion of the home islands was going to commit. Well, that's what they thought. By the normal rules of war, the invasion of the whole home islands were weeks away. So they knew it was over. They knew they were fighting kind of a losing battle.
The mechanic walks off, and then like the pilot sees some weird creatures, but they refer to this as a deep sea fish in the water.
Yeah.
Which I don't know.
Yeah, I've heard.
Maybe they're like extra bloated, and that's why they're deep sea fish, because there's kind of a weird bulbous thing on them. But whatever.
Probably, yeah. Because I thought it's like, are those like those fish that showed up in the tsunamis?
Yeah.
Like explode if they come to like our air pressure. Because where we live is like it's like the guys in Outland, they just burst because there's virtually pressure here.
I mean, it would make sense because there is like a plan later on with that exact concept that happens.
Yeah, everything ties together. Oh, by the way, one thing though, that one reason this movie might be so good is it virtually got shut down for 2 years due to COVID.
Oh, okay.
Work the script like lunatics because it's like, we've got nothing. We can't do any shooting. Can't be within 6 feet of each other, but we can send text back and forth about this script. So,
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Some of my best modeling work I did was at that time. Still bring those old, I call them the COVID models. It's like bringing your Russian tank again. Yep.
They see weird creatures in the water. Oh yeah, like I just watched this with a dub. I felt that kind of to be like on board for an American audience. Did you watch it subtitles or with the dub?
I watched it subtitled, the colored version, but in like I said, in Godzilla -1 - C, which means minus color.
Oh, okay.
That is only subtitles.
Okay, so. All right. So I guess that's an alternate like version on Netflix.
Yeah, you can watch it on Netflix.
Okay. I didn't see that. So.
Yeah, I did because I thought it was like, is this like a trailer or something? Is it like something extra they did, extra scenes? It's
Yeah.
no, it's just in black and white.
Then we cut to night. The air raid sirens go off. There's a growling off in the distance. Uh, Godzilla is the size of a watchtower as it knocks over the watchtower, and then something in it blows up. So,
Yeah, this kind of threw me at first. I was like, I thought Godzilla looked bigger in the trailers
yeah,
because here he's like a T-Rex
yeah,
size.
yeah. The crew runs for a bunker. Is it Tanabachi or I can't.
Tasha Bani.
Tasha Ban wants the Koichi to hop in his plane and fire the guns at it because it's like the biggest guns they have on the island. It's like he's I can't remember what he said 30 millimeter guns or something like
I think.
Okay. Yeah, if you don't know, planes have huge machine guns in them. Oh,
He was flying a Mitsubishi A6M0.
okay.
It was the premier fighter in World War II for the Imperial Army.
Huh.
It was the cutting edge at the beginning of the war, and by the end of the war, it was a death trap. Because we continued to because our factories weren't being bombed, we just developed newer and newer fighters.
Yeah.
And by the time at the end of the war, they were the guys in the Hellcats felt bad when they had to go against the Zero fighters. Well, when they weren't being kamikazes, when they were kamikaze, they didn't care, but they really felt bad because the Hellcat, the guy just rode in the titanium bucket, and if there was all kinds of strategies, but basically if the Zero was trying to outturn you, you just rose up, and then even if it fired at you, it wouldn't affect you. And the Hellcat had 650 caliber aircraft machine guns in the way, so they'd be like, go, go, go. Zero would just atomize. The guys actually said it. Those guys weren't known for their mercy.
Yeah.
We actually felt bad towards the end of the war. They didn't have very well trained pilots for the Zeros by the end either.
Yeah.
So they would go against like these naval and marine aviators that had been fighting for like 2 years in the best aircraft ever made for that era. And it's like, oh, here come the Zeros, and these guys would be like, oh.
It's like murdering children.
Yeah. Bad. But yeah, Zero was ahead of its time in a lot of ways. I think it could also run off low. Didn't need the high-powered aviation fuel, so it could run off lower grade fuel. And I think it was one of the first ones that featured. I don't know if they had self-sealing tanks before the Rush or before the Germans, but they didn't have any armor protection. Oh no, they did not have self-sealing tanks. Okay, I was wrong. They did not have that. But at the beginning of the war, they were good for outturning and outclimbing a lot of Allied aircraft. But by the end of the war, considering they just had to do the same thing over and over again because they were being, just cataclysmically bombed into dust, they couldn't build like new factories and a lot of new planes. So they were pretty much a relic by the end of the war. But the only nice thing I heard the American pilots say by 45 is like, I respect anyone that would get in one of those planes. Go against a Hellcat or something because it was just no competition. You could outclimb, outcorner, outturn,
outgun.
Outgun.
Koichi sneaks into his plane and he starts shaking as Godzilla nears,
which would be a normal reaction.
Yeah. He holds his mouth and looks away from Godzilla, which seems to be like, oh, is that an effective method? Which I think is like a horror movie thing, like especially in Japan, about like holding your breath because like demons can like smell your breath or something like that. Yeah,
there is. You're right. I've heard something.
But also, that's almost like in line with Nope too. It's like, don't look at it, then it won't hurt you. One of the mechanics panics and fires at Godzilla, and so he starts going after them. Godzilla crushes people and like bites them, but doesn't like bite them in half. He just bites and throws them. So,
yeah, he's picking them up and throwing them very far.
Because this is a PG-13 movie, so they didn't like want gore, so they just have to have.
Yeah, he's not like flipping them up in the air and swallowing them
or ripping them into pieces or anything like that. So, Um, the pilot gets out of the plane as Godzilla destroys it. Like he just bites it and starts eating it. Does the plane blow up? It does have a bomb on it, but I can't remember if it blows up. It didn't like when he wakes up. It is like charred, but I can't remember it like blowing up necessarily.
I'm not. My understanding of kamikaze planes, what made them brutally effective, is they were packed full of explosives.
Oh, okay.
Have guns, or I think they even took off the extended fuel tanks and just put bombs in those.
Okay.
That's why, like when they hit our aircraft carriers and stuff, it was like, oh my god, because it was like a giant bomb hit the plane or hit the aircraft carrier. But I don't know.
We cut to his morning. The pilot wakes up, or Koichi. Godzilla's gone. The dead bodies have been lined up by Tachibana, a Japanese. Which he's. I think this is where he like gathers the photos of all the dead and he gives it to. Oh no, he does that in the boat. Never mind. Then we cut to his Japanese boats full of soldiers who are not looking well. Tachibana gives. I think he gives them the death letters for him to deliver to people, but no, it's just like pictures of all the people that died on that island. But also, they're also like they say like because they have a name for this creature, so presumably it already exists. But they said it's like locals, but like I don't know if they're necessarily the mechanics there are like locals, or if there's a different locals that we're not talking about that call this creature Godzilla.
Yeah, I don't think it was the mechanics. I think they were part of the. So it was probably like
island natives or whatever.
What are those groups? Like the people from Okinawa.
Yeah.
To us, it's like, oh, it's different Japanese people, but not no to the Japanese. Like the Okinawans are like their own groups, which I didn't realize until like a couple of years ago. I was like, huh, okay, didn't know that.
Yeah.
Japanese not being inclusive? What? No.
Yeah, such a kindly people to be some of the worst racists in the world.
They're very pleasant about it, though.
Yes.
They will always smile and be like, no.
Please leave.
Yeah.
Here's some cheap food that's really good.
Yeah. Enjoy this. Take this with us.
Let's see here. Then we cut to December 1945, Tokyo. Koichi walks up to his house, or his parents' house that was burnt down, because, this is the firebombing of Tokyo. A lady that's like his neighbor knows him, and it's kind of like, oh, you're alive, but then she's like, you're a kamikaze pilot. Why didn't you die for our country? Look what you did to our country and my children and stuff like that. And you realize that like, oh, her kid's burnt to death, his parents burnt to death, and she is not happy with him. So
yeah,
and
he didn't die to protect our country.
Yeah, and he's right there, so he's right there for her to blame him. So, Koichi looks at a note from his parents, like basically like telling him like I can't wait till you come back and stuff like that, which he constantly goes back to, just because it's kind of like it's almost like in modern movies where like somebody has like a voicemail of the last time they spoke to a loved one, and they just keep replaying the voicemail. So, I don't know. I guess this is probably the same trope that's been around for like nearly 100 years, but whatever. I just can't refer to that one. Cut to the next day. Koichi's in the soup line. A woman is being chased by like some police guys or something, and she leaves a baby with Koichi. He doesn't know what to do with himself. He's about to abandon the baby, but doesn't. so it's like, and then he walks off, and the lady just kind of pops out and takes her baby back, or as we find out, it's not her baby. She starts following him because he didn't abandon the baby, so that's weird. You're one of the good ones.
Yes, post-war Japan, as we learned from some of the Hasegawa films, is very strange time.
Yeah.
And they consider, it's weird, they consider the post-war period of Japan to be from 1945 until 1989.
Wow.
That's how they rate it.
Huh.
Because they changed something in their constitution, which determined how many military bases we could have there. And once they closed a few of them down, they were like, okay, we are out of the war period now.
Oh, okay.
They consider themselves an occupied country from 1989, which is weird because now we're kind of like, well, America's not what it's used to be. We're a big continental power and we kind of have our own thing. So how about you guys, we'll still sell you stuff, but why don't you do your own defense? And they're sort of like, oh, would you like to open some more bases back? Because there's this thing called China. We don't have a history. Well, we don't really have a lot of people anymore. Like, we don't have as many young people as we used to, and you don't have any. So, yeah, they're in a weird relationship now about that. It's like, we hate that the foreigners are here. We need the foreigners here. Because I think, what is it, in 2 years, they're actually going to start calling, they're going to have an army and a navy. They're going to formally call it that.
Okay.
It's not going to be self-determination force or some other name.
Security force.
Where guys like wear like white gloves and have hats, and it's like they're driving like Abrams tanks and Apache helicopters. It's like, what are they? Oh, they're the police.
Oh yeah, I mean that's what you get even like Pat Labor, or I always called paddleboard because it sounded better. The mobile police, where it's like the police have giant robots with guns. It's like that seems completely unnecessary, but in that world, it's like you're fighting rogue robots, so that makes more sense. But
I did not realize that the post-war period of Japan did not end in their minds until 1989. Like 3 years before I graduated high school. This is what they considered themselves. We did not.
And and like wrapped up in that is like Japanese businesses buying out American businesses.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what's that period called? There's a name for everything. And I'm going to get it wrong, and I'm going to say this all wrong. That was called the Tanawa asset period. It's when they overvalued the value of their country, their stock, and their money to acquire foreign assets. And then the bubble burst in 1989 also.
Okay.
1990 to 2001, they call that the lost decade that they will never recover.
Huh.
Because their economy shrank by 34% in one decade. But they also call that the cool period because that's when Japanese culture became very exportable, and that people in overseas really liked it all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, culturally we were growing, but economically we were shrinking because we like kind of fibbed about what things were worth and what we had. But oh well, because we watched that movie Wall Street in the 80s, and like, let's do that.
We cut to they're hanging out out in Koichi's rubble of his parents' house, which has like half a roof or whatever. So this lady is trying to take care of a baby whose mother died. The baby's name is Akiko. Noriko is the woman. Next day, Koichi goes out with a bucket, which I guess water probably.
I hope.
His neighbor starts putting him down for being like vaguely kind. It's like, oh, you're gonna try to like repent by like taking in a woman and her baby. It's like, you asshole.
Like the woman is next door. She's just really harsh.
Yeah, I just have her as
my family's dead, your family's dead. You're a cock. Basically that kind of mode.
Yeah.
What a weak man.
I don't think I ever picked up her name, so Nathan remind me every time I say the name. I just called her the neighbor. So.
Let me look up my list here.
Okay.
Ota is her name. Sumiko Ota.
Ota. Okay. So Ota lost her children and decides that she's going to give them some pointers on raising a baby. And she gives them like her last bit of rice, which we know from like Kurosawa movies how important rice is.
Hidden Kingdom, Hidden Empire, or whatever.
Yeah.
Invisible Empire, yeah.
Well, it's in all his movies. Rice is always like a commodity during that era, which with the samurai and stuff like that. But it's
well, yeah, you know why the Edo period is so wild like that, don't you? With rice,
why is
because
that?
they made it into currency.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, hi Satan, welcome to banking. Food is now, because we always made food a commodity. I mean, it always equaled the same thing if you didn't have it, whether it was currency or commodity. But when people just hoarded it because it was currency, not because they and regardless of whether the peasants starved, that's a nightmare situation. But that's because the government was so corrupt, the different people, that it was like we have to have one thing that has value, and they decided, well, it's got to be rice because they couldn't get it together to not, and they also didn't have a lot of rare metals and stuff on the Japanese
Yeah.
islands. So.
Um, cut to it's March 1945. It's sometime later because they mentioned about getting all their rice stolen, going after a job. So it's like, well, that was a waste. But the baby's still alive, so they got that going for him. Koichi has a new job to clear minefields, which really it's not minefields, it's mines in the ocean. So, which I was confused at first. It's like, oh yeah, he's gonna get blown up in a minefield, but then like when it's like if we're gonna shoot them on the ocean, that seems more tenable. It's like, that's possible.
Yeah, it seems a little less dangerous than like getting the knife and like, did I hit metal yet? I hope I'm at the side. Not uh-oh.
The U.S. is now occupying Japan, which we don't really get like. That kind of happens in news footage in this movie. You don't really see it like their presence, like during the movie.
And by the way, where he lives, the firebombing of Tokyo, the most comprehensive destruction of civilians in the history of war was the firebombing of Tokyo.
Okay, yeah.
What they're living through is the worst thing humans have ever done to other humans when it comes to saturation bombardment from the sky.
Yeah.
It killed more people than Hiroshima and Nagasaki, just not as quickly, and it involved thousands of aircraft, not one or two, but it created the firestorm effects where people just got vaporized looking at the fire. It was done intentionally. Guys like Curtis LeMay, remember I always tell you that famous quote where he was like, God damn, we better win this war. They're going to hang us. I can't believe what we just did.
But there's also a weird assertion at the end of this movie where they say like their lack of care for their people and the starvation that happened killed more people than like we did.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So it's like I didn't know about that. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Post-war. I mean, this is how I understand it as an outsider, someone who doesn't speak Japanese and is not an expert in Japanese culture, but has read just a lot of books because that's the best way I can access things. Imagine if in America we were conquered and they told us Jesus was a fraud and everything you believed about yourself was fake. Now, go make a country. Have fun. There's all kinds of guns around and organized criminal gangs, and everyone just came home from war and they're really used to violence and killing people. All your myths are dead. Have fun. Make a country. And it's post-war Japan. That's something most people would not be robust enough to recover from.
Yeah.
Jesus is fake, Elvis is dead, and your culture doesn't exist anymore. And giant people, giant men twice your size are showing up who you believe you are superior to in every single way, and you are under their boot. And they laugh at you and they think you're funny, and they're kind of like, oh, these people are weird. They're not necessarily cruel, but they're indifferent. It's like, yeah, have fun. Have fun with your country and your family units, which were the core of your society. Well, half of them are dead or died in a bombing or killed. Your parents who you're supposed to honor and venerate. Well, they're dust now. So, whatever random relationships you can form and then hack together, which is totally against everything you were raised to understand. And this movie does a great job of capturing all that too.
Yeah.
This guy, he didn't finish his mission as a kamikaze pilot, which to Westernize is like, good, you didn't die, you have a chance at life. But
which is important to the end of the movie where it's like that's the change in Japanese culture is like people
exactly.
are valuable now.
Yeah.
Just like in America.
Yeah, those weird giants that showed up that are kind of goofy and laugh at you. It's like they got some good ideas. People do matter, and life is important. Just don't like clandestinely bomb Pearl Harbor, and we won't do too many bad things.
So yeah, Koichi shows up and he gets in a wooden boat, which he's kind of like dismissive of at first. Is like, Jesus Christ, is this special boat they got us to do mines? And it's like, yeah, it's wood. So they talk about how these mines are magnetic, and so that's how it avoids them getting blown up by the mines. So it actually makes sense. But they also oversold, like, we have a specially made boat to fight mines.
Special mine clearing boat. It's a fishing scow. It's like, yes, it's made out of wood, and the mines. Because I think how the mines worked, if like they detected a magnetic field, they just blew up, right?
Oh, I thought they would get like magnetized the boat, and then like those little things on the end of it, I thought those were like pressure switches to the mine.
Oh, maybe that is how they work. I
That's
don't
what I
know.
always thought. That's what I thought those little spikes were on the mines, was like the pressure switch to set the mine off.
Yeah, they are. I thought they also would go off if they detected a
Oh,
magnetic.
maybe, probably, yeah. I don't know.
The
Explosions
only
underwater do terrible and wonderful things, so you can blow something up from pretty far away from a because the way
water explosions are terrifying.
because the energy is dispersed equally in all directions.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I like how the smartest men. Speaking of world, well, hold on, now my mouse quit working. Speaking of World War II and post World War and like bad ideas, I still like what was the operation called where they detonated nuclear weapons on decommissioned Navy ships to see what the effect
oh
would
yeah,
be,
yeah,
and they tried to play it off like, oh yeah, that was about what we thought, and in reality they were horrified.
yeah.
They're like, that is so devastating. We can't let the Russians know how much that would destroy. Like, you could sink the Pacific Fleet if you got them all together
Yeah.
and detonated a nuclear weapon underwater. Because nuclear weapons underwater are wild. Because what happens is the nuclear bomb detonates, and then in a perfect sphere, the water is vaporized until the compression limit of the nuclear blast is overwhelmed by the weight of the water that isn't vaporized, and then it almost instantly collapses in on itself, and that's the shock wave that destroys the boats and stuff above the water, because it's like, I forget how, it's basically a force multiplier of 10, and all that water is just completely radiated,
Yeah.
and it's covering the boats, and it's a tsunami blast, and these were World War II nukes. I can't imagine what like full on like hydrogen bombs like we had later would do. But the only mine I know anything about that all the submarine books and all the guys I've talked to, that anyone fears nowadays, is still the American Captor mine. It's the encapsulated torpedo mine. So it's just a mine that hangs from the bottom of the sea, and it's got a Mark 48 torpedo in it, and it's inert until it detects, and if it's armed, and once it detects the screws of another ship, it goes active and just runs right at you. But it's so close, you have no chance of
Huh.
defending yourself because it doesn't move. It's not doing anything but just sitting in the water.
Yeah.
And then once it detects, so the Russians hated them because it would just launch it out of this tube, and it would fly right at your submarine. You had no chance of getting away from it.
Huh.
I think they were invented in the 70s. I think they're still one of the scariest.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Well, what it does is just right on top of you.
Yeah.
It's not the classic, like the sonar guy, like, oh, I hear high speed screws. It's like, no, it's just there. It's not there. And then it's there. It's coming right at you. I'm sure the Russians have an equivalent.
Koichi meets the crew, which I just call Kid, Doc, and the captain. So the kid is just some guy who constantly, to them, he's the youngest one on the crew, but he also laments not being in the war, which they all like, yeah, you're lucky. You don't know how lucky you are. The Doc was he's like a weapon designer during the war, and then the captain's just a boat captain. I don't think he mentioned service, but he's probably in the Navy or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was implied they were all in the Navy.
Okay. And so is this like the captain's boat, or is this just a part of the government reaction to clearing mines?
I think this is the government reaction.
Okay, all right. They go out and run a cable between two boats to cut the mine loose, and then when it bobs to the top, they shoot it with a machine gun when it floats to the top. The captain can't hit the mine, and so Koichi gets on the gun. And he's able to blow it up on his first try, so showing off, like, this is where he tells them that he was a fighter pilot, so it's like he kind of gives some details about how to aim on a moving target. So it's like, oh, good, he's found his place in his world.
He's using a Type 93 heavy machine gun.
Okay.
It's called a Ho type gun in Japanese. It's a 13 millimeter it's a 13 millimeter basically anti-aircraft gun.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, it was used on ships, submarines and stuff for that kind of moderate defense.
Kid.
weird is it has the magazine in the top. It's one of those top loaders.
Okay.
It's firing like big, huge shells.
Yeah,
So.
Yeah, boat guns are also always gigantic. Airplanes and boats have huge guns on them. So, Kid pisses off Koichi because he was like telling him about how he wanted to see action in the war and hope the war would keep going, and so he basically grabs him like, "Don't ever say that again." So, Koichi wakes up to Godzilla killing people, but specifically the same engineers and mechanics from the Odu Island. And then he wakes up again and it's just a nightmare. Koichi doesn't explain his dream and freaks out Noriko. It kind of looks like he's like trying to have sex with her or something, but he's just freaking. I don't know what's going on there. So,
well, he kind of like gets on top of her and just starts screaming.
Yeah,
I don't think. I think it was like he collapsed on her. Is how.
Yeah. I mean, I could see it being read as sexual. It doesn't seem to necessarily be that way. Because also their whole thing is like, yeah, we're not a couple, and then they clearly are. So pure Japanese, like we don't know we love each other. Now it's too late. So.
Deny it. It's not true. I mean, that's a Western thing too. Believe me, we do that a lot ourselves.
Then we cut to July 1946, Bikini Atoll, Operation Crossroads. We get a nuclear bomb test going off here.
That was it. That was the one. Okay, that was Operation Crossroads.
Okay, all right.
That's the one where they did the Bikini Atoll test, but they also detonated one underwater.
Okay.
And they went back to Washington. Like, we gotta keep this. Really, how many boats were we able to recover the boats? It's like, yeah, if you want all the guys that die of cancer, you can recover them.
There's the nuclear bomb test. Then we see like a shot of Godzilla getting blasted with radiation underwater, this is presumably what makes him start to grow exponentially. And I'm guessing giving him his weird regrowth powers.
I'm assuming, yeah.
Okay. So you don't think that was naturally a part of Godzilla until he was hit with radiation?
I mean, it could be. This was kind of that. This was fiction from that era, though. Remember when like radiation was the key to like, because it does mutate you in real life. It's you don't get.
Yeah, that's a growth. It's a regrowth.
You don't get to fly or shoot fire out of your eyes. It's cancer, but this was kind of the magical thinking era when like radiation will make evil more evil.
So that would be in the end Act 1. We got Act 2. We got a montage of daily life with Noriko and Koichi, which is like seems happy here. It's like, oh, they're finally a couple or whatever, and they have a baby that's not there.
He's getting paid a lot of money for doing this.
Yeah, well, yeah, they have a rebuilt house, which I say it's really good. Which like to us, like this is just a shed with like some heater in it, but to them that would be like crazy. So it's like
a pallet with like built out of pallets or something.
Yeah. Koichi has dinner with his boat crew. Koichi tells them about his found family, which they kind of like. It's like, oh, look at you guys. This is like a dream. But Koichi just downplays everything. He's like, this is not a dream. This is all a burden. I should be dead. So it's like, Koichi's just really just buzzkill right here. So, then we cut to March 1947. Koichi gets home and finds Noriko in a work dress, and she says she's found a job in Giza, which I don't know. Is that like a separate city, or is that a working city where you can find?
I thought that was a store.
Oh, okay, that makes sense then. Okay, because I wasn't sure if there was like Giza's like a different city that wasn't destroyed, and so it's actually more productive than Tokyo at the time, or I wasn't sure, but that makes more sense that she's going to work for a specific store. So
I thought she was going to work at like a shopping center, like like the ones they have in Japan where there's people that they just pay to stand there and open the doors for you and stuff. I thought she was going to be a door opener or something.
But yeah, she says she's always wanted to be self-sufficient, and she looks very cute in her uniform. So which it's even more sad. It's like, come on, Koichi, what's wrong with you?
What are you waiting for?
But yeah, it also makes sad because she's like, why are you doing this? And she's like, well, you can't find a wife if I'm hanging around here. So, but
all these like hints, just being totally like, huh? What talking about? Women are so strange.
And then so basically this is where Koichi suddenly realizes he has feelings for her as she's like about to like go away. Then we cut to a montage of Godzilla. This is like this. They break in with these like news reports where it's like American news reports, like kind of played out here. We got a montage of Godzilla breaking ships, and there's sightings of him, which is weird because it's like a radio, so it's like seemingly like, well, everybody knows about Godzilla, but then it's supposed to be like a country secret. So it's weird. So they're tracking Godzilla, which like it looks like a hurricane tracker almost. Like he's gonna reach shore at this time. Yeah. Then there's something about the U.S. can't provide assistance because they have to fight the Russians or whatever, or keep up.
Antagonize the Russians.
Yeah, yeah. So, but they do help assist in building up the Japanese security force. But they're just not physically there. I guess it's just more financially provided. I'm not sure.
Well, they let them take old ships out of retirement.
Yeah.
But some of them are unarmed, or there's like battering ram type ships.
Okay.
Some of them are, but yeah, they barely function. So
then we cut to it's May 1947 near the Asagawa Islands, which I don't know what those are. Cruiser ship is like broken in half and kind of listed over. It's been like punched to death essentially, because it's still floating, it's still on top, but there's no crew around. So, Koichi here mentions Godzilla for this is the first time he's ever like talked about it to anybody, because he starts seeing the deep sea fish floating up, and so like that means Godzilla's around. Here's where Koichi mentions that he was supposed to be a kamikaze pilot, which kind of everyone's indifferent to that. It's like, oh, you failed at your mission, but also thank God you're alive. So, then we see Godzilla again, and he has grown quite exponentially since the first encounter. So the doc starts speaking about a plan, like they're supposed to distract Godzilla and use mines they've recovered, which we never see that happen. We just see him break them up and shoot them. Like we don't see them recovering the mines, but they got a couple mines on the boat. So
that must be a harrowing concept. Pull that explosive up around, just let it hang out on the deck.
Well, I mean, the mines they have seem to be quite different from the magnetic mines that you show them, that we've seen them shooting in the first part. So
yeah, these are probably like these are like Japanese mines, so like maybe they're not armed or something.
Yeah.
Because they do have a remote control feature. Well, not remote. I mean, it's remote. There's a cord attached to it. But.
Yeah. What do they call that? Something by wire.
Yeah.
Fly by wire. Yeah. Because isn't that the TOW missile? Is that what it stands for? Something by wire.
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't remember what.
I don't remember, but I know that in the slow motion pictures you can see it looks like there's a fishing wire connected to it.
Yeah, because that's what. Yeah, because there's a part where like it's missing, is why they can't set it off. I mean, it's not a TOW missile. TOW stands for tube launched, optically tracked, wire guided. Okay, yeah, so it is wire.
Wire guided. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't wire guided; it's just wire detonated. So. Yeah.
This looks like an extension cord's plugged in. That was the technology of the time.
Yeah, it was amazing. It worked. Yeah, don't trust your Wi-Fi in World War II. So, so yeah, we see like a lot more fish start resurfacing. Like they sound the alarm, which is like presumes there's like other boats in the area, but we don't necessarily see them. We get one later on, but yeah, because no, there is one right there because the Godzilla just eats the boat next to them. And I don't
demining boat that's with them.
Yeah, it's always weird when Godzilla eats something because he never like ingests it. He just kind of chomps it up and spits it out. So I'm not sure if Godzilla eats.
Yeah, that we don't know. We don't know what his diet really is.
I mean, I guess he's just radiation. So
yeah,
he doesn't need to eat anymore. He's all grown by radiation, satiated by it. The captain's like trying to get them out of there, but there's problems with the boat engine because, of course. Then they get the boat going, and Godzilla's chasing him, and this is where you get you see Godzilla's head poking out of the water, and then like all the spikes, and there's like clearly different segments of it, and also like just Godzilla moving the water is like much more smoother and seems faster than he's more clumsy on land. because he doesn't have the aid of buoyancy, I guess, or something like that. But it is very frightening here. So.
Yeah, it's very menacing Godzilla.
And it's like, like Deadeye Godzilla, so it's just like always like kind of staring for. It's like alligator eyes or something like that. So.
Yeah.
They drop the mine and they go for cover. They detonate the mine, but Godzilla keeps coming. Koichi finally gets the nerve to fire a gun at Godzilla, but of course it does nothing. They get another mine out and they drop it in Godzilla's mouth, but like here the det core breaks, so they can't detonate it. And then Koichi shoots the mine in Godzilla's mouth and blows it up. Godzilla's head is like blown up, but then it like reforms quickly. And then Godzilla yells as a battleship shows up and starts firing at Godzilla, and they end up keeping the wood boat crew safe. Then Godzilla jumps on the battleship and just starts clobbering it. Like the deck guns get like a really close, like a point blank blast off at Godzilla.
Yeah, that was cool because the guys on the deck guns would not give up, rotating the gun, point blank range, back into the water for a little bit.
Yeah, he goes back in the water, but then there's he goes below the water. There's a glow underneath as water shoots his laser breath, which I guess they call it the heat ray. It's heat ray, right? Or is it just heat breath? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think they call it a heat ray.
Okay, and just blows up through the battleship. Godzilla gets up and yells and then leaves. Then we cut to Koichi wakes up in the hospital. He did take like a hit to the head in this battle, so like now I guess he eventually lost consciousness at some point. Koichi wants to warn the people, but like apparently Japan has decided they want to keep this quiet and they're gonna like do it themselves. So, then we cut to Koichi's at home. He's not telling Norika about his nightmare and the literal demon he just fought. So it's like, hey, what's wrong with you? It's like this thing. It's like you're not gonna believe this. I was fighting dinosaurs in World War II. So it's like, oh, never mind. Noriko wants him to open up. He tells her of his like embarrassment for like not committing to be a kamikaze pilot. And then he tells her about the island and the first Godzilla fight and him freezing rather than firing on Godzilla, which would have done nothing. So it doesn't matter. But to him, it matters that he didn't act when he could have, even though the act would have done nothing. So, which is symbolic to his whole kamikaze thing. So, we get to the root of Koichi not being happy because, like, with his, he's not happy with his found family because he basically doesn't think he doesn't deserve to live, doesn't deserve to have a wife, doesn't deserve to have a baby, and he happened to find all these things, like, just kind of by just keep going, but he does. So basically, he's like, life is a nightmare to him because he doesn't think he deserves to live. Cut to Koichi wakes up in the morning. Noriko is feeding Akiko. He actually like wakes up happy and he goes, "Am I really allowed to dream again?" We cut to a cruiser in the sea. Godzilla swims under it. Godzilla heads towards Tokyo Bay. Another boat spots Godzilla and waits to detonate bombs on Godzilla. The alarms go off and there's reports of an attack, and then people just start panicking, which is like, this is what they're supposed to avoid the whole time. This is why they're keeping it quiet. But we see Godzilla's wrecking the city. Noriko is on a train that gets stopped because of Godzilla, and then she sees Godzilla trudging through the city, which it's very awkward how Godzilla walks, but it's very like, oh yeah, this is a giant creature. This is kind of how it moves when it's out of water. But I think this is also keeping homage to like a guy in a rubber suit from the 1950s.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I almost did wonder. It's like, oh, okay, they're doing the 1950s and 70s guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Godzilla used to like jump and stuff.
It's almost like that thing. It's almost like that weird thing in the movie Spawn, and they have like the devil, and it's like super weird, but like you hear like it's actually got a great audio commentary to that movie because that movie's like pretty bad, and they have this really bad CGI Satan and they're explaining like why it looks weird. It's like, well, it has a normal talking voice, but like its head is like 10 tons and like 3 feet, three stories tall. So like at that speed, this is how the movement of the jaw would be, which doesn't line up with an English language. So it's like it's technically correct, but it looks and sounds bad. So, so it's a hard thing. Scaling is a hard thing to do. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
um
It's the hardest part of model building when you're freehanding it. I build this to scale. Well, it's time for a calculator.
um let's see here. Godzilla picks up the train with its mouth, and Noriko's like hanging on inside the train. So she's like basically like I don't know, either everyone slides out and is okay, or she's the only one that survives this train. I don't know. Yeah, but the part of the train that's in the Godzilla's mouth is like not her. Her train is like the one hanging off of that car, but it's like split in half, and she's basically just dangling and like like 3 stories in the air or whatever, however tall Godzilla is here. Godzilla goes over some water, so she makes a jump for it. She kind of has to do it like swing back and forth to gain momentum, drops down, and then Godzilla drops the car like just right near her, but misses her. We get reporters doing like a live report on the roof, and like as the building collapses, it's like, oh man, that's a shitty death. It's just doing your job, man, just trying to report. And that's always like the thing up with Godzilla. It's like, was there a purpose to that? Did he do that on purpose? Was he annoyed? Just happened to be in his way? It's like, I don't know. It's all a parable for Mother Nature and stuff like that. So Noriko is in the streets as Godzilla walks towards her. Koichi finds her and grabs her, and like they make a run for it. Tanks roll in to fight Godzilla, but to no avail, because like their guns are even smaller than the battleships that have been shooting Godzilla, so they're not gonna do anything. So Godzilla starts building up his heat blast. It's like starts from his tail. It's very like drawn out here, where like the little spikes on the back like grow out, and then like blue stuff glows up. Which is like really the best special effects in the movie is all the laser blast stuff. So or heat blast stuff. Godzilla shoots a blast through the city. I don't know what he's aiming at. Do you know what he's ever like aiming at with his blazer? The heat breath thing?
I thought he was aiming at like a tall building.
Okay, all right. There's a huge blast at the end of the heat breath, which it basically just looks exactly like a nuclear explosion, which makes sense.
Yeah.
Noriko pushes Koichi into an alleyway to get him away from the blast that hits her, and like it blasts forward and then it kind of gets sucked back, and then like Koichi gets out of there and he doesn't see Noriko and he just assumes she's dead. And he starts to break down, which of course in the scene I'm like looking at that like if you can push him into the alleyway, you can just jump and push him into the alleyway.
Yeah, would it actually been more efficient for you to tackle him?
But it kind of it gives a better character arc to Koichi for that to happen. So
yeah,
and then a mushroom cloud looms over the city. Godzilla screams, and then a black rain falls down. So
very reminiscent of the nuclear bomb attacks on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Because that black rain was something that happened.
That's why that one Ridley Scott movie is called Black Rain.
Scott movie.
Or like the only cool thing is it when like, to decapitate the guy with a katana on a motorcycle. It's like that's cool. It's like is the rest of this movie gonna be like cool and like stylish? It's like no.
That was a Showa asset price bubble.
So that being the end Act 2. We got Act 3. There's a report detailing what happened in the city and Godzilla. Today was Noriko's funeral. The boat crew and the neighbor are in Koichi's house. Koichi's like completely stressed out. He says like, "Why did I think I could dream again?" Doc offers Koichi a chance to be.
I wake up.
What's that?
I say that was just. It's like that's a thing you should say every morning.
Oh, okay. Just like a tome on your ceiling. Why did I think I could?
Oh, just something I touch as I walk by.
Doc offers Koichi a chance to be on a civilian effort to stop Godzilla, which there seems to be like a concerted effort to. It seems that everything else has been the security forces, so it seems to be there's supposed to be something special about the civilian effort. I'm not sure I necessarily picked up on that. Nathan, is there special, or is it just the same thing but slightly different?
Well, I think this is more like we're going to try to use science this time because just hitting it with steel's not working.
Okay.
We're gonna still this is still the security forces, but it's under civilian direction.
Okay.
So it's like, yeah, we're gonna do a science thing now instead of just firing the big guns because they're not working.
Okay.
That's how I read it.
Okay, that makes sense. Then. Okay. The special group have a meeting. Doc has a plan to sink Godzilla by displacing the water density with a Freon bubble membrane.
Thank God they did this before the what was that called? The Treaty of Montreal.
Okay.
Because this would have been pre 1987 Freon.
Yeah.
So it would have been like Freon 2. It's like, oh, we can really screw up the ozone layer.
I mean, there's been nuclear bombs in this area. Like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Nuclear bombs screw up the ozone layer? I never heard. I'm sure they do. We were blowing them in the atmosphere and stuff, so we'd know.
Doc has a plan to sink. Koichi wants assurances that this will kill it, but like Doc is like, I mean, I can't give you assurances, but I'm guarantee you this is the best shot we have. So, Koichi starts to leave, but then Doc is able to get him to come back. They also show off the inflatable rafts here. They just like CO2 cartridges just immediately inflate it. And so there's a second strategy is that they're gonna sink Godzilla with the Freon. If that doesn't work, these rafts blow up, and they're gonna raise Godzilla back to the surface, and hoping that the rapid decompression will kill Godzilla, which is fucking
give him bins.
Yeah, it's fucking ingenious. This is awesome.
They're clever people.
Like, I don't think I've ever seen this in a movie before, so it's like
no. We're gonna do 10 scale the bins.
I mean that like the ocean is an incredibly destructive force, so this totally makes sense.
We know more about space than we do the planet we live on. It's such a deadly environment. I mean, you could walk through sections of the Soviet space station exposed to a vacuum. Now, if you open the door underwater, that's it. You're done.
There's like a ex-military guy there that tries to give a rousing speech, but everyone is like kind of like feels the loss of their nation, and so they don't know if they can take it anymore. So a bunch of people leave, but then the rest of the crowd like kind of psych themselves up for the plan. They're like, yeah, who else is gonna do it? It's like, yeah, we're all gonna die. We cut to the boat guys are having dinner again. Doc is going to use recordings of Godzilla to lure it out. So they're gonna drag a speaker underwater to try to lure out Godzilla, which is interesting because it's like, you know, this is still like World War II, you know, post World War II era. So I think we're in 47. I can't remember, but
yeah,
all that technology would be out there. So. Koichi wants a fighter to go up against Godzilla, but they're like, yeah, all the planes have been decommissioned. But then we cut to they have an unbuilt design of a fighter plane that never got used, and so they're going to give that to Koichi.
An actual plane.
That's what I was going to ask you. Does this thing actually exist? Because it's fucking weird. It's interesting, but
it is cool. It was an actual prototype called the Kyushu J7W Shinden.
Huh.
Shinden means magnificent lightning in Japanese.
Huh.
It's a canard plane, which means the wings are swept back, but it's a pusher because it's a prop.
Okay.
They had originally planned to use a jet engine based on the German design, the Messerschmitt, but this was developed in 45, so it never got off, out of prototype. I made 2, but it had 4 forward-facing guns, and it was designed as a lightning interceptor to stop the super fortresses from doing their, massive raids on the Japanese home islands.
Okay.
It is a real thing, but it's a real prototype. It never saw service.
Okay.
And it's also based on a German. There was the Germans threw a lot of blueprints at the Japanese because they knew the jig was up. They're like, yeah, we're about to be overrun. So here, this and carry on the our weird alliance of fascism and whatever Imperial Japan was.
Yeah.
Keep fighting.
They need a mechanic to help rebuild this plane because it's not in good working condition. Because basically it wasn't upkept. They just have them they just put them away in warehouses. So Koichi goes looking for Tachibana because he's like, well, he's a good mechanic. I have like a, like he has an eternal hatred for me, but so I'm gonna go get this guy because we need him. I need him. So I need to repent or whatever. He goes around. They can't find they don't know where he is. And so it's at night. Tachibana shows up because he has a specific limp. So they show that kind of like his lower leg as he limps towards and knocks Koichi out with a club. And we cut to he has Koichi tied up and he beats him up. And Koichi's like, "Hey, Tachibana, you're here! Like, I know you hate me." And then we find out like to get him out of hiding, he sent him like a bunch of like insulting notes. Like he basically like you got your men killed and stuff like that because that was the only way he knew to bring him out. And so here he like deeply apologizes, like, "We need you. Your country needs you. I need you." And so he lays out the plan that Koichi plans because Koichi knows like the only thing that ever hurt Godzilla was by blowing it up from inside the mouth. So he says like, I'm gonna finish my job. I'm gonna kamikaze myself into Godzilla's mouth and save Japan. And you're like, oh shit, it's like all coming full circle. Then we cut to Tachibana shows up to fix up the fighter plane. There's a montage of them setting up the plan. We cut to the planning meeting. The doc goes over the plan and how Japan has like treated their lives cheaply. That's like they talk about like most people died from starvation and stuff, and then planes being built without ejector seats because like they didn't bother to think of the person first. And so like everyone thinks like this is a death wish. Like the doc is hoping like we're gonna follow through with this plan and then no one's gonna die. And so weirdly people are like energized by that, like, oh, we're becoming a new Japan. Like who thought like individuals is like the way to go. So and then they kind of walk out of that meeting kind of having an upbeat kind of thing to it, but the kid's there, but the captain won't let the kid go on the mission, and the kid's angry about it because all he wants to do is serve Japan in some way or fight for Japan. He does say something like, well, somebody's got to be here for the future, so the captain's like not necessarily like hopeful that he's going to survive this, but somebody needs to survive this.
We need to pay for these sins.
Yeah.
The future. It's like that kind of dark.
Yeah.
Farewell.
We cut to Koichi spends time with Akiko. It's kind of like happy at first because they talk about like Noriko, like he's like, "Is that mom?" And then Akiko starts crying, and then he like holds her, and then he puts her to bed. I think he talks to the neighbor for a little bit, but we cut to the next day. Koichi is like ready to go fly the plane. Tachibana has put a bomb in the nose of the plane where I guess there was like an extra gas tank. So now, so make it a
one trip.
Yeah. And there's also a mention of like, here's one thing, but we all pretty much know what that one thing is, but we'll leave it till it happens. It was set up already in a scene before that, so.
Yeah, and they make it seem like it's something else too. It's like this arms the bomb, and he's like, and then they just like pull the camera away, and it's like, oh, he's telling him how to arm the bomb, so when he flies into Godzilla's mouth, the bomb's armed before he dies.
Yeah,
it's very dark.
Then we see Akiko goes to Sumiko, the neighbor, with a note from Koichi, like who gives her like a bunch of money in case he doesn't come back. We cut to we're in the bay. We get the deep fish sign, and also they've set up buoys that are like radiation indicators, so they know Godzilla's coming. They say a boat gets thrown across the bay, like into like the docking areas. Koichi gets in his plane. He has a photo of Noriko in it, which that's just a common trope from movies about putting your wife in your jet in your cockpit, and then that's what kills you or whatever. So,
yeah. Like clear and present danger. Like the guy with the nuke is going in the movie, at least the guy with the nuke on his F4 Phantom, like the plane or the picture falls and he goes to pick it up and he doesn't see the SAM missile plume.
Yeah.
And when he comes back up, it hits the plane, but the nuke crashes into the desert, which is the whole story of the sum of all fears.
Which wasn't that like derided in the commentary? Tom Clancy go like, "That's bullshit. They don't let him fly."
That was other like that's bullshit. Be the one that gets you. It's the one you don't see that gets you, because you can outsteer the ones you see because you have 100 times more turning surface.
I don't know. Those Phantoms didn't really have a lot of turning surface. They just kind of.
I think it low out. I don't know if it was a Phantom. I don't know if the Israelis have the Phantom. Maybe they didn't. I don't know.
Oh yeah, maybe there might have been some kind of.
The ones that got devastated, I forget who the Sams. They shot down some Phantoms, but they really think the Intruders, and then the B-52s, and then there was another ones. Oh, the Thunderbirds. They always hit the Thunderbirds. Yeah. That's why they called them the Thud, because that was the sound it made. It hit the ground. I think the F-4 could just outrun them. Because the F-4 could really outrun stuff.
Oh yeah, that was the Navy's ideal. Just give us the biggest engine you got, and then it took them a while to maybe don't do that. But even then, they still fly the F-18 Hornet, and I think that's still just the biggest engine. It's more nimble, but it's still a big engine plane. So
yeah, the F-14 Tomcat was.
Yeah, which when you look at the stat sheets on those, it's oh, this is amazing. What can it do? And it's I don't know, effectively and efficiently run a campaign. So just a money fucking hog. So
not break down.
Yeah.
That's the thing it can't do. Well, do you know? I didn't know this. That for commonality, the engines on a B-1 bomber.
Yeah.
Okay, those are just 4 F-14.
Okay.
But they function differently. But they can also go full afterburner.
Yeah.
Which is really cool.
Yeah. Koichi takes off. Godzilla walks ashore. Koichi buzzes by Godzilla and he gets his attention, so he comes around and shoots Godzilla and lures it out of the bay. Boat Team 1 is sent out to attack, and then Godzilla starts to charge his laser, and Godzilla blows up. It ends up being a decoy ship. It's just full of explosives, or is it just is it full of explosives, or is it just there to be shot at? I can't.
No, I think it's just there to be. It's to go in a straight line.
Okay. There's a good bit where it's they have the Godzilla charging up, and then they just cut to the inside of the boat, and it's just the sway. It's pure silence except for the swaying of the boat and the rocking of stuff in there. The other boat team heads out. They set up a trap and start to surround Godzilla. They're towing a string of these Freon canisters. And so the two boats glance each other because they're going at top speed to complete the trap, which is really neat. So especially when you know stuff about boats, it's not when they get near each other, it's more of a disaster than what happens here.
Yeah,
so.
you would actually want a minimum of 100 feet boats for safety.
Godzilla starts charging up his heat ray again. They set off the Freon and Godzilla sinks into the bay. But as he's at the bottom, Godzilla starts yanking on the wires. They inflate the rafts and they try to kill Godzilla with decompression. But then he's able to cut loose of the rafts, but he's still being held by the wire. So the raft floats up to the top, but Godzilla isn't there. The kid shows up and he's basically just got a bunch of civilian boats with him. They kind of just cut around this, and suddenly all the civilian boats are tied to the two boats, and they're just trying to tug of war Godzilla up out of the water. Godzilla's being pulled to the surface. He seems to be freezing. I'm not sure if that's because of the Freon or the decompression or some combination of things.
I think it's just to show he's taken some damage and he's slow.
Yeah.
That's what that was attempting to explain.
Godzilla starts his heat ray again, and then we see Koichi flies at Godzilla. He flies the airplane into its mouth and blows up Godzilla's head. And then we cut.
Godzilla's also getting ready to discharge his heat weapon.
Yeah,
or what they call radiation ray.
Okay,
that's what some things are referring to it
Then we cut to like a chute opens, revealing Koichi to be alive. Then we have a flashback to Tachibana explaining the ejection seat, and it's like, we need you to live. And so this is kind of like them healing their relationship and like the trauma they've had together. So it's just a really good moment. It's like, he didn't succumb to being a kamikaze, but he still saved the day.
He still did something insanely brave,
Yeah.
but he lived through it.
Godzilla's like heat ray is like is still like kind of going, but like it ends up like kind of like his top of his head's completely blown off. He's like body's frozen, so the heat ray's still like going on inside his body, and that just kind of like breaks him into pieces, and it starts to fall to the bottom of the ocean. There's a celebration ashore. There is a reveal that Noriko is alive, and it's like, oh, okay, well, whatever. And so Koichi shows up to her, and she asks him, is his war finally over? And so he says yes, and he like cries at her side, and then she kind of like, as she like bends down to kind of like lean over his head, there's like some kind of infection crawling up her neck.
Yeah, I thought it was a bruise, but someone said it was a black scar, and there was different interpretations of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I figured that was just like setting something up for another movie. And then we get a quick shot of the Godzilla body regrowing in the deep sea, and that's supposed to basically be what leads up to the actual first Godzilla movie. So that is Godzilla -1. So yeah, I kind of had like low expectation, or like wasn't really feeling it in like the first part of the movie, but it really pulls itself together at the end. So I end up really liking this movie because it was like set up pretty high, and then like I had high expectations and dropped, and then they picked up again. But this is a well done movie, especially for a Godzilla movie, which there are a bunch of good Godzilla movies, but a lot of them are just kind of like cheap monster movies. So
yeah, some of them got really strange too. They had like little tiny girls in cages that would sing. Mothra come alive, and Mothra would attack Godzilla because it was always like kaiju versus kaiju.
Yeah.
And then it's like sometimes Godzilla was the aggressor, sometimes he was the good guy.
Yeah.
Like we had, and had to build Mecha Godzilla to fight Godzilla. But yeah, so that's 2023. So we got one more movie left in our series. But where's that? We're sending our program space containing the supercut of the scenes from the Imperfect Collection of movies. That is the Verhoeven Effect. Nathan, what one scene from this movie are we shoving into space? Yeah, this is another one that gets harder as it goes on, because it's one of those things.
So I would just do like the first when they're in the mine boat and the encounter of Godzilla. That's what I would do. Yeah,
because that kind of establishes like the planting of the idea of like, how do you destroy this monster?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, here's how. Yeah. Oh, I like that one.
Okay. It might be like the most frightening the movie gets, just because of like just Godzilla coming after you, and it seems like effortless for him.
So. Yeah, and he seems like excited about it too. I can't wait to kill these people.
Well, you can find us on Letterboxd, username VHE. 1 out of 5 stars. What are we giving this movie?
Oh, 5 stars for sure.
Okay.
Definitely. I mean, this movie, I hate to make it sound this way, but for a Japanese movie, this movie had a lot of heart.
Yeah.
And a lot of like, I care about the characters, which a lot of Japanese movies, it's kind of, there's so many things going on.
Yeah.
So many of the characters' motivations seem like subtle, or it's like, now here you understand exactly, even without knowing much about history. It's like, oh, you know what mood these people are in, why they feel the way they do, the stuff that went on.
Yeah.
This movie had a lot of heart.
Okay, good. So I'm glad I recommended it then, because I just kind of did it on a whim. So, because I couldn't think of any other 2023 movie for some reason. I guess we could have done everything everywhere all at once, or whatever.
Yeah, but this is like more in line with the stuff we like to do.
Also, this was just immediately available on Netflix, which you got a bonus of watching the black and white version, so that was kind of fun, I guess. So.
Yeah, it's on there, and like I said, you can watch it. Watch it on there, and then it's like an old fashioned, like a 50s or 60s Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
I think in the 70s they were in color.
Yeah, probably. Well, you can find us at verhoeveneffect.com. There we have listener support. You can support us at a monthly site plan of 99 cents, $4.99, or $99. Cancel anytime. You can rate our podcast on whatever platform you choose. You can rate us whatever you want. The only thing the algorithm listens to is the highest ratings. Remember, give us the highest rating so we can trick the algorithm. If we can become very successful, have a very successful side business.
Yeah.
We gotta do that hustle, Nathan.
Yeah, got to get out there and grind. Working 40 hours a week is for suckers.
You can find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on Blue Sky Social at Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on Facebook at Verhoeven Effect. And you can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory and watch both this and that show live and unedited, which we did a show, was it last week? Yeah, I think it was last week. And then, so that's up there. I forgot to put it up in the feeds, but you can find it on YouTube. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Colin.
And I'm Nathan.
Goodbye, America.
So my wife